What is going on, everybody, and welcome back into ByerlyStudios. Who's excited for another video in the Goliath Birdeater Tarantula series? Now, in the previous video, we had sculpted this Amazonian tree frog. I kind of wanted it to look like a water tree frog, kind of cowering in the water feature that we're making for the Goliath Birdeater Tarantula diorama. Now, that is an entire playlist on my YouTube channel. I will link that above. If you want to go over to the actual main playlist and watch all of the videos, you can do so. Otherwise, in this video, we're specifically going to be making the mold and casting the little tree frogs. Now, I'll be honest with you, this mold didn't go as according to plan. I made a few mistakes along the way, and I will kind of share those as we go through this process. This is just designed to be kind of a relaxing video in the overall process of us, sculpting, molding, casting, and then also later on in the series, fully painting the little tree frog. So what we're doing now, we can jump to the actual content of this video and start discussing some of the mediums and the products that we're using here. Now, the little tree frog was sculpted out of Monster Maker Ink Monster Clay medium. Then we went ahead, and once that was fully sculpted and detailed and ready for its mold, we used actually the Smooth On Mold Star 15 Slow for this project. Now, this is just a small little Tupperware container. I like to use Tupperware containers for a lot of my molds just because I can put the lid on it and it reduces the amount of dust that the actual mold has on it when I have it stored away or put away. Now, I was kind of deciding how I wanted to kind of drop this into the actual silicone. I knew that I wanted to do a drop-in method where I kind of like sunk it into the silicone. And it's not a whole lot of detail on this, so I'm not really worried about it like not holding the detail, but I do a little bit of a dunk here, as you can see, just to make sure that it has the silicone has an opportunity to release any kind of bubbles that might be underneath it as it sinks in. Now, I have a little piece of armature wire stuck into the rear of it there, and I was like, oh, I'm just going to have this propped up here, and it will kind of just stay upright. And then the very top portion of that will be the actual pour sprue. Doesn't really work out the way I imagined it, and it actually releases and drops in here in a moment all the way to the bottom. Now, this is only probably about the 4th or 5th mold that I've made, and I'm really going to refine and get good at the process of mold making soon. Some of the molds that I've made here recently have been more advanced than probably what beginners would want to start with, but this is something simple here, and there are ways that I could have improved this process for sure, and in the future I'll probably do that. So as you can see, we went ahead and jumped to where the Smooth On Mold Star 15 is cured. We're going to go ahead and cut out any remnants or over mold of the silicone mold on the Tupperware container. It peels right off without any issues at all. That's why I like using these little containers. And then what we'll do is we'll drill a small pilot hole in the very bottom of the container just as an air release. And we're going to use just a small palette knife that I use for sculpting to kind of pry this out. All we need to do is get the air or oxygen underneath the container and the underneath the silicone mold, and then it will pop right out because the container is tapered from top to bottom, so it just slides right out of the container. I really do like this. The container will help it keep its shape as it's stored, as well as it keeps the outsides of the silicone mold when I'm casting with it very tight, and it just allows me to add just one layer of protection to the mold that I've made or spent time making when I'm not using it, right? So I'll put the top on it, I'll sit it off to the side, maybe like in a plastic storage container. Maybe I'll label the top of it, but when I need it, I pull it out, and it's in a little container that I can just quickly organize all of them together. Because if you do start to make a lot of molds, they can just get chaotic and they can be all over the place, and you just need to keep things organized so that you know where they are. I'm going to do a cut mold here, so I decided to just use an X-Acto knife here just to do a nice cut line down the bottom of the mold here. Now, like I said, the frog broke free of the armature wire that I had holding it upright. I would have liked to keep it upright, but it just didn't work out that way, and it actually sank to the bottom. I'm not going to waste it or make another mold just because. I did make a master cast of this, so I can always cast another one if I need to. But I just want to go ahead and use what I had already created during this process, so that way I'm not so wasteful. Pulling that silicone apart there and then just gently cutting it The silicone there towards the bottom, because the frog had settled down at the very bottom, the silicone is very thin. By sinking the silicone mold into the Tupperware container before we cast it, it kind of helps reduce I would say it helps to reduce the amount of influence that the thinness of that silicone has. Otherwise, if it were not in that and it was just holding itself all, with rubber bands around it or something like that, it would probably distort quite a bit. But because we're using the container, which is already molded to the bottom of the silicone mold, it really works out. It holds it together and it gets us a nice clean cast for the most part. There's our original monster clay sculpture there. It looks very chalky just because of the reaction between the silicone and the wax-based clay. Looks pretty good overall. I'm really happy with how it looks, and it turned out pretty good. I do a slight amount of cleanup work on the inside of the silicone mold here. Again, one more time, this is Smooth On Mold Star 15 Slow. And I got these in a trial kit, and this is just the leftovers from another previous project. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut a little sprue hole. I'm going to probably start to sculpt me my own sprues here soon, so that way I can just make these little pour spouts just in a much more professional manner. So just be aware that although I'm cutting this out, and I do have to cut quite a bit to get the hole in there the way I need it to be, in the future this is going to become a more refined step in the process. And I'll be honest, my X-Acto knife probably isn't as sharp as it needs to be. I went to a few stores locally and was unable to find any, so I'll have to order some new ones off Amazon. It's okay, they'll be here in 2 days, no worries. Just prying out some of that silicone there. I'm actually cutting through the thickest portion of the silicone mold, because this is technically the top part. And then once this is done, we can move on to the next stage. So that portion of the video was at 6x speed. You can really see how much time I really invested in cutting out that hole, and it was more work than it really needed to be. I'm really going to refine the sprues and get that process locked in, so that way I don't have to waste time boring out really nice, neat pour holes or pour spouts in the silicone molds that I make in the future. So, of course, this is being made when a few other molds are being made at the same time. One of those being the 3D ultrasound that I made of me and my wife's third child. It's kind of a simple throwaway mold that I was just using for practice. I will try to link that above as well, but it was just a relatively just simple pour. But I also used some leftover remnants of a previous pour to kind of supplement some of the silicone mold star 15 that I used for that, and just to show that you can use some that's already cured, kind of supplement it instead of just using all new liquid form. You can just supplement some that's already cured into those molds, but that way you just don't waste extra material when you don't need to. The material is not cheap, so if you're going to do it, try to do it right. If not, then you're going to waste your money. At this point here is when I actually started to drill that little hole there. I do this on majority of the molds themselves, and although it creates a little bit of an air pocket for air to escape through the bottom, and sometimes the urethane that we use to cast this out of, which we'll get to in a moment, will kind of pour out of the spout. You just cut that off with a pair of side cutters or something similar. Alright, so with the hole drilled there, the oxygen is able to escape there, and we're able to push that silicone mold all the way down, and then it just gives it a nice, strong, controlled seat at the very bottom. We don't want any air down there, because then you get a lot of overpour on the Smooth Cast 300 Bright White we're about to use. Now, I am going to be using a fast set for this. I really do like the fast set for a lot of these projects, so I can be able to really cast it and then move on to the next step. Alright, so I'm just going to pour the excess of this into this little frog mold here.
and I'm gonna let that, I'm not just gonna waste that. And I'll go ahead and mix up another batch to actually pour in there. I'm not going to do a whole lot for this mold, you guys. It's going to be pretty simple. So let me go ahead and mix up, I'd say, I'll go with 10. 10. Put that away. Alright, and 10. It gives me 20 mLs to fill up the frog. Go ahead and mix that up. Look how magical that is. So magical. I think next time I'm going to go with non-fast setting because I just don't like rushing. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean. Alright. There's that.
Alrighty, so we're going to go ahead and pour this in here. Now I'm back to voiceover now because I have the fan going behind me, and I just felt like that was a little bit excessive amount of background noise. And I just don't want to put y'all through that. I'd rather have a nice relaxing background music than just a background noise. So we're going to go ahead and just slowly pour this in. Now during this process, I did find that because I had the feet angled downward, it should not have collected as much air pockets in that area as it did. So as I make more and more of these frogs, trying to perfect my pour of this silicone mold, I find that what I end up doing to get the perfect mold is I had to put the silicone mold without the plastic container upside down, and then I poured the feet and the legs individually, and then I did just a little bit of a slush cast on them. Because the way the frog settled in, it just made it to where there's possible air pockets around the toes and around the forearms. And you'll kind of see that in a moment, but it's no problem. I'm able to repair them quite well. And every time I do this, I do refine the process a little bit to where I'm reducing the amount of air pockets on those fingers. If I ever do make another silicone mold of the master copy, then I'll for sure make sure that it's sitting the proper way so that the back is facing the upward direction. And then that way it has room to expand and push all of those little bubbles to the top when and before it fully sets up. As we wait for this to set up here, we'll be able to start going into the next process. It takes around, I'd say, I usually let mine set for an hour or two before it fully cools down, because otherwise it generates quite a bit of heat as it cures up. So now we're going to be using an X-Acto knife here. Mine's not too sharp again. I still don't have an X-Acto knife, but it's enough to get the job done. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and just shave off the cut line, which actually crosses the back. Because remember, the feet are facing upward in the silicone mold. We're going to go ahead and cut that line off. Now I do use a Dremel tool with not a sanding bit, but like a stone bit, just to kind of reduce the amount of overall material that I take off and it doesn't get out of control, to shave some of these down. And I feel like the Dremel tool does give a lot more control than the X-Acto knife, but just for shaving it off in general, down to a point where it's semi-smooth, the X-Acto knife does pretty good. But here's how it's supposed to look. I'll do this a few times during this process, and you'll also see that I'll lay it on my hand quite a few times during the painting process as well, because this is how he's supposed to be when he's actually on the Goliath Birdeater Diorama. And that's generally what I sculpted him for. I wanted to sculpt Yvonne Hunt over at Kirsten Conjure, who commissioned this piece of art, a few special additives, and the tree frog was one of those. He's going to be sunk deep into the, well, I don't want to say deep, but shallow, up to maybe his rear legs in the epoxy pour water feature that we add to the diorama base. That will be one of the last videos in the series before we do maybe like a compilation of all of the highlights for all of the videos that we had, because there's quite a few videos during this process that we were able to pass through. We've used so many materials, so many mediums, so many different processes to create this entire diorama, and I'm so proud that I'm able to offer not just the Goliath Birdeater as a paintable option, but I can also offer this little frog as a paintable option as well. So as I refine this process, I can sell this and people can order this little cowering tree frog and paint it themselves. or they can order one that's already been painted for them. So although I have not added this currently to the Etsy shop, I will probably be adding it very soon. Now the Goliath Birdeater itself, which we've already casted, the main body and the legs, has already been silicone molded and casted, and you would have seen that in the previous video of this series. If you haven't had the opportunity to go see that one, then make sure you check out the playlist at the very end of this video, which will take you to all those amazing videos. So as you can see here, we're just slowly refining the process, and we'll go ahead and zoom through me just kind of fumbling and carving away at these cut lines to get the perfect smoothness that we need. I don't care if it has a little bit of bumpiness to the exterior or the spine around the neck and the head, but it just can't have any really harsh lines where it's obvious that there was a problem with the casting process. Let's go ahead and jump into 6 times speed here. Alrighty, so with the first frog casted, I do actually cast this because it's such a small amount of smooth cast 300 bright white. I go ahead and make it a few times, and it sets up so quickly that I really like using the fast set for something small like this, as long as it has the potential for the bubbles that accumulate to be removed. If you want to really just let the bubbles rise to the top on their own, you'd probably want to do like a slow set or something. But for the most part, I'm really enjoying this product from Smooth On. Everything that they make is amazing. If I ever get like endorsed or sponsored by a silicone or a urethane plastic company, it would have to be Smooth On. They're an amazing company, and I would love to work with them in the future for testing new products and testing new mediums. It is an amazing product, and I really do enjoy their stuff. It's really good stuff, and I'll continue to preach all of their products in the future as I use more and more of them. You can see in the background that we already have the actual Goliath Birdeater Tarantula fully sculpted, molded, and casted. So make sure you go back and check out some of those videos. They're really worth a watch. Now, some of them are a little bit longer, 20-30 minutes long, but they're well worth it because they have a ton of information, a ton of my mistakes in the process. So if you want to, just see where I went wrong so you don't make the same mistakes, you can see some of those videos. Of course, I still have yet to do a lot of the cleanup work on that Goliath Birdeater body and legs. But during the same process, I'm going to go ahead and sand down these little frogs as well. As you can see, they're all turning out quite the same. There's that air pocket on the front forearm and the leg. I have been again to refine the process, so I don't have to really worry about that as much as I did before. But otherwise, I'm pretty happy with the overall process, and I think it's working out quite well for the most part. Kind of just trying to use those side cutters there to remove some of the excess and the cut line there. What do you think, guys? I think they turned out quite well. I do like how tough this plastic is. It's very stout, very strong. I have not seen any weakness in this urethane plastic whatsoever. And I think that it's an extremely durable plastic. I look forward to making masquerade and full-fledged face masks out of this, which I'm looking to get into very soon. So stay tuned to the YouTube channel for mask making. Alrighty, you guys, what do you think? I think these things turned out absolutely adorable. Of course, the legs and the arms are kind of tucked underneath, so he's just cowering in his little place here, trying to say, "Please don't see me, please don't see me." And that is the goal that I was looking for when I began sculpting this little tree frog. Now, he's not a specific type, but I will probably paint this in the painting portion of the video with Winsor & Newton acrylics in maybe like a dark brown to an orange tint overall. I appreciate you watching. I will catch you guys on the next awesome video in the series. Later, guys.
Thank you for watching. Check out all of these awesome videos.